Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about the sponsor for this show, which is Aura. And I want to let you know that I'm a reporter in my day job, and I use the internet every single day to find people, many people who would rather not be found. And you would be literally shocked if you Googled your own name, maybe using your middle name as well to filter out some results, but you would be shocked of how much of your personal information is already readily accessible online. Your phone number, your home address, your email address. There is a ton of information out there if you search for it. And the reason why is because there are data brokers out there who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, people like that who want to learn more about you. And that's why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura identifies who those data brokers are that are exposing your personal information, and they automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They'll even opt you out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. So I'd like you guys to use our link. It's aura.com, aura.com/teamhouse, to try 2 weeks and see how many data brokers are sharing your information. The link is also down in the description, and there's a QR code that you can scan if you like. So please check them out. You'll get 2 weeks for free. Again, I think you would be totally shocked to find out how much of your personal information is already out there. So go ahead, do a Google search on your own and see what's out there. And if you don't like how much of your personal information is out there, I highly suggest you check out aura.com/teamhouse to try it for 2 weeks free and see if they can help get your information private again. That's aura.com/teamhouse to get 2 weeks for free.
The Team House with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
The 2011 deployment was the last of the surge, the special ops surge into Petraeus's surge into Afghanistan and kind of increasing that force. So BICO was the last company in 2nd Ranger Battalion to surge, whether stay late or go early. And so we had just finished the CAPEX at Fort Bragg, which is the big, the special ops dog and pony show for congressmen and the president and all that stuff, which was fine because it gave us an extra week of training with 160th and some platoon time, if you will, to run around and work through, fine tune some TTPs and some SOPs and bring some of the new guys a little bit tighter online with how we were going to accomplish these tasks when we getting overseas. So we got tasked to go to Fob Shank and be tasked with Team 6 under their command. And so we went over and did that. And we had a pretty good working relationship with Gold Squadron for that early part of that deployment. And then the night of August 6th rolls around, and so Objective Lefty Grove comes up on the table as it's a target that had been tracked and chased and kind of lost, but never could get a lot of fidelity to it because he's a pretty dynamic target, meaning he's constantly on the move and hard to nail down to one location. But he had rolled into the Tangi Valley on this this day, and SIGINT had kind of pinned him into a certain location inside the valley and a little cluster of buildings, and it was enough that it was probably about 70% fidelity on the objective targeting, that it was still solid. And we had just come off a few days of weather, and we're looking at maybe some more days of weather on the back end of this. So we had this little 2-day window of good weather to do an op, and I was kind of looked at my PL, and we went to chow, and we were sitting there having the conversation. I'm like, look, I'm willing to take a swing at 70%, for this target. We're going to be stuck sitting for weather for a few days. And I don't, we've already been stuck sitting, and Ranger doesn't do well sitting around, with weather if we don't have anything to do. So, I was like, I'm willing to take a swing at 70. We're going into the Tangi Valley, so it's basically a guaranteed gunfight. And what do you think? And he's like, yeah, I'm willing to take a swing on 70%. So we went back and pitched it that we'll take a swing at it. And if nothing else, we'll let him know that we're chasing him and kind of break his pattern of life. And usually when we can do that and break the pattern of life on people, that's when they start making mistakes, and it becomes easier to, launch a follow-on operation because he's not sure what he needs to do. And so, we, drew up the plan and got approval and then briefed the plan, pitched the plan to the boys. And it was one of the only times I've ever told the boys, actually it was the only time I ever told them. I was like, this is the Tangi Valley, and it's not an if we're going to get into a gunfight. It is a 100% we are walking into a gunfight on this night, and there's a reason why we only go into this valley on the no illumination cycle, and that's because they're going to shoot at anything, helicopters, aircraft, people. So switch it on, put it on straight, and we're going to get it on tonight. And so we had an uneventful infill when no rounds taken, because we had flown in Extortion 1.6 and 1.7 had been our infill aircraft. And so then they flew back, cycled through, and Gold Squadron was on QRF for us, or any follow-on objectives that came up from what we were doing. And so infield, got the boys on the ground, started movement to the objective, got word that there was 8 to 10 enemy fighters moving off the objective. And so we hold formation, got clearance for fires with the Apache gunships, and lit into them with the Apache gunships, 2 gun runs per aircraft, and then pushed the target uneventful after that, and then cleared through the contact, and had stirred up a bunch of stuff in the valley. And so it's just guys in there rebel rousing, trying to get guys to come out and gather a force to come and fight. And so we're clearing through our target, and it's looking good for what's being seen on ISR, because they're seeing a bigger picture than what I'm seeing within 1,000-meter circle of my objective. And so the call came from the jock to my platoon leader and myself. It was like, hey, are you guys going to go, you're going to go push farther into the valley and take on this contact? And at the time, we were working a pretty good objective, and we were actually kind of thought we had what we were looking for on the objective as far as who we went into the valley to get. And we said, no, we think we're working it, and we have what we want. They said, do you care if Gold Squadron comes in and it starts their own movement to contact on the rest of this objective, and about 5K to the west of you? And I said, well, that's plenty of deconfliction of space for small arms fire. So if they want to come in, and that's what they want to do, good on them. It had been a pre-briefed discussion between my platoon leader, myself, Jonas, and Lou, the Master Chief and the commander for the Gold Squadron, that, hey, look, if it does ever happen that it's a single objective, but we end up bringing in the other element, we'll link up, and then we'll just kind of work exfil, as it plays out. And if we have cycle aircraft, then we'll cycle aircraft, and we'll just get it done. And it's like, okay, great, awesome. So we knew how that was going to go, and we kind of had a pre-planned position where we were going to link up, if that had happened. And we got the word that they were loading on the Extortion, and we weren't sure which way they were going to come into the valley. And we kind of said, hey, we recommend, if you overfly our objective, then we can at least, provide ground cover for anything. And, but that way, we only get a small amount of say, and it doesn't really carry that much weight as far as what the airplaners are doing. because these are conventional aircraft, so the pilots are only flying what's been approved through their S3 air shop, and so what we were saying to our jock is not necessarily making it over to theirs, and so we were like, well, okay, so you get the call that their wheels up and they're 10 minutes out, and so we wanted to clear one more building, so we kind of pushed to try and clear this building real quick, and get the call that they're 6 minutes out, and then 3 minutes out, and so we held our assault and what we're doing, and we're just kind of sitting there waiting, and I'm waiting to see the birds flush after infill, and so that we're not, if we end up shooting on target, that we're not going to end up ricocheting something into aircraft because they're within small arms distance, and then that never happened. And I was kind of wondering what's going on, and then we get over the fires net from the FOs that there's a fallen angel, and I had known what the pro word, if you will, is, and I was just kind of dumbstruck by it, and I said, say that again. And he's like, we have a fallen angel, and I was like, okay, now so that my brain and my it's all connecting, speak it in English. And he goes, extortion's been shot down. And I was like, okay, great. So then it was, how fast can we back out of this target building? How fast can I get the guys on the road and get them to start moving? Even though we don't know exactly where it is yet, I just know the general direction that we need to go, which was to the west. And so we got the boys backed out of the objective, off the objective, and we're moving in about 3 minutes. As far as getting guys pushed out, and then it's trying to, all the weapons and everything that we had accumulated on our objective is trying to take all that stuff with us and, get everybody and everything on the move, and not leave, all this stuff to potentially be shot in the back with it. So send it forward and find a place to blow it in place. And, then the question comes to, like, what do we do with all these detainees? And so it just becomes, well, leave them. And, people are like, well, are you going to untie them? I was like, nope, somebody will come over and cut them loose later. I'm not cutting anybody loose. They can figure it out.
Right.
And so we got off the objective and started moving. I just, I'll never forget, when the lead element and the snipers and the dog handler finally got within eyesight of, around the terrain feature. And it was just this, I won't use the profanity, but it was one of those, oh my God moments. The whole night sky is just lit up with just fire, and, the burning wreck of it. And, we're still trying to figure out, the fastest way, and, should we, so the Tangy Road that runs through this valley is heavily IED'd. I mean, it's IED'd like every 300 to 400 meters. There's something planted in that road, and it's to stop, the trucks. And so there was this, do we want to go overland? And I told the PL, I was like, hey, look, sir, my recommendation, we got to assume the risk to force, and we're just going to have to stay on the road because we got to get there. And he said, I agree. So we just, I told the dog and the handler up front, it was like, if it looks suspicious or he wants to, say that there's something in the road, and just mark it good, and just tell everybody to stay out of the way because we got to go. And so it took us about an hour to go the 5K to get up there. And then, it's a kind of trying to put this whole thing together on the fly. And, everybody's radios are going nuts as far as, the PL, he's, like basically glued to the stat radio, and just like, hey, sir, I need some information here. You got to tell me how many people are on this aircraft, So we're working through that, and it's, I finally get the numbers, and I'm thinking, it's half the force. And I'm like, okay, so, and they, but he gave me the number 38. And I was like, so how many are on the other aircraft? I'm not joking about it. I'm like, I'm in disbelief. It's like, how many people are on the other aircraft? And he goes, empty ship. And I was like, oh. And it's like, for those people that don't understand, that aren't listening, that aren't, in the military mindset of this is that, it's a technique, and it's not a bad technique. It's a risk of force, risk to aircraft decision that leaders make. Do we put everybody on one aircraft and only risk one aircraft to enemy fire and get the force all in at once, or do we only put half the element on one aircraft and the other half on the other? And the problem with that, split force on multiple aircraft is that that lead aircraft makes contact, that second aircraft is not getting on the ground.
Right.
And so then you only have half your force on the ground. So given the situation that they were going in to pick a fight with, anywhere 12 plus fighters on that side, it made more sense to just risk one aircraft and put everybody on the ground all at once. And it's not a bad decision. It's just, people ask me, well, why didn't you do that then? Well, I brought 55 guys to the fight that night, and we don't fit on one aircraft.
Yeah.
So, we finally get up there on the crash, and we start, calling for supplies that we're going to need. And, the backside support, from, guys in the rigger shop to doing CDS drops, because we're out of water by this point. There are supplies that we just don't have. And the whole way up there, I'm in my mind, I'm flashing back to all the stuff that we brought in the night we did the turbine 3-3 and the Marcus Luttrell. That 6 years ago, all that's flooding back into my mind, and I'm trying to think of all the stuff that we had and all the stuff that One Charlie had, and I'm trying to request this stuff, because at this point in the game, as far as the GWAT, this is combat search and rescue is not something that we have time to train on anymore. And it was something that, back in the day when we assumed Ranger Ready Force 1, it was one of those 1 day, 2 day taskings that, we all trained, it was like crash axes and smashing through. And this is what we do. Now we get FAM egress once a year when we do rotary wing vilats on, if the aircraft has a hard landing, not destroyed, but it has a hard landing, this is how we destroy the radios. This is how you destroy, the airframe if need be, and so on and so on. But at this point, it's like, okay, well, I need body bags, I need water, I need biohazard, and if you can find them, I need Class D fire extinguishers. And so I'm trying to get all this information requested to the jock so that they can build this weird CDS palette to hopefully help us, get everybody recovered. Because by the time we got on the crash site, it was still a fireball. It was still on fire for hours after. And, it was one of those learning points, I guess, if you will, for the jock that, hey, look, this is the second time in less than 10 years that we've had this happen, and we don't have any Class D fire extinguishers to put out a metal fire.
Right.
And helicopters have a lot of magnesium in them.
Right.
And so, we did correct that, later on, that all this stuff did make it into country, and thankfully that never had to be used again. But it was one of those, well, we probably should have some of this stuff at least on standby. And
given that you were already in a non-permissive environment, I imagine that you probably had a decent air package to start with. But what happened at that point? I mean, did they start pushing all the assets you guys needed?
Yeah, so air package, we had Apaches on station, and then we had an AC-130, and then we had fast movers in the stack at altitude. And so what happens is, when this kind of situation happens, is everything in the country shuts down. Doesn't matter where in the country it is. All operations are cease and desist. If you're not on target, you better be calling for exfil or you're walking home. Because, every ISR platform, manned and unmanned, fast movers, rotary wing assets, they're all coming to wherever that crash is at. And it was nuts, the amount of support that we had. And so the Big Army's combat search and rescue element, the Pathfinders, in the book, they're not, Pathfinders. That was just their call sign, was Pathfinder. Those guys almost didn't make it in. Because they were shutting everything down. And so it was either going to already be there, which was us, or it was going to have to come in on a truck. So they made it in just moments before everything got shut down as far as rotary wing assets. And the strange part is that, transport aircraft have to fly in pairs or triplets. And so Extortion 16, the other aircraft in the flight, I had to get special permission to fly back from the objective area as a single ship.
Now, I must have misunderstood, because I thought when you were saying everything in the country got shut down, I thought you meant because it was all pushed to you guys. But why would they shut down the Pathfinder or the combat search and rescue effort coming
It's
out?
the rotary wing aircraft are getting shut down. It's not the fixed wing aircraft or the ISR platforms or any of that stuff. It is the the Apaches are getting grounded. All rotary wing air assets are getting shut down at this point. And it's a timing issue of, can we get these in, and basically what it is it's allocation of assets, and we just had a helicopter shot down, so we're not going to commit any more helicopters into this area. And so what their whole thing is that they had to get on the ground after we had containment of the area to provide a ground force security element on their HLZ for them to be able to come in. And so we had that just, right before the sun came up.
So it almost sounds like they get super risk adverse. Like, we have one helicopter
It is
down.
very risk adverse. Yes.
We have a helicopter down, and so we're not going to risk another helicopter to get you guys the assets you need, because we don't want to lose another helicopter.
Right. And so then a lot of it becomes like things that we were requesting that normally would come in like on the back of a 47 and just get kicked out in a kit bag.
Yeah.
It has to get put on a fixed wing aircraft, so a C-130, and then it has to get CDS drop, combat delivery system. It has to get dumped to us that way, so they can fly in, A-10s as air support and all that other kind of stuff. And it just becomes a risk aversion to more ground fire. For rotary wing assets.
So how did this unfold as the sun came up and you're continuing with this recovery mission now? That's what this has turned into.
Right. It's, so it was, all this is going on, and, we're trying to figure out, is there going to be anybody else that's coming in? And, so we're securing the crash site in a, kind of a football shaped perimeter as loose as we can, and to start working the recovery efforts of it. It's still dark and night vision's not working because it's so bright with all the fire. It just becomes this. Basically sent 2 fire teams out, one on the north side of the creek that the Tangy River, and one on the south side. And we just started doing concentric arcs. Basically fire teams online just kind of combing around this. And what we're looking for is anybody that has been possibly ejected from the crash, whether they had survived or hurt or whatnot. And so that was the first thing, is how much of this can we clear within reason, get out 100 200 meters, and make sure that when we start pulling remains, we're not missing somebody because they got pitched out of the back. So that's how we found like the first 6 to 8 guys were kind of in this arc pattern that had been kind of thrown out within 50 meters. And then we got started getting the accountability, and so then we started finding chunks of the aircraft, the rotor assemblies, the front and rear rotor assemblies, are in these positions, and we're kind of assuming that that's the farthest that any of this wreckage is going to get. As people aren't going to get that far, but the rotor blades are still spinning and torqued out, and they're going to wobble off and end up in an orchard here, or get slammed into a tree, cluster of trees over here. And so then it becomes how can we work this problem while it's still on fire? And so then it becomes, how long can we sustain the exposure to the heat and things cooking off and exploding, and the risk to force for us to make this as fast as possible. And um it's just kind of one of those surreal moments, if you will, because you start, as the sun's coming up, you're starting to see the look on everybody's face of just horror and disbelief that I can't believe this has happened. And you try not to expose everybody to that, so you're really relying heavy on the guys that have a little bit more season under their belts and the squads that are a little bit more mature. And so I was really relying real heavy on second squad at the time to work this. And then as they started to get gassed and just worn out, rotating one other squad in to take over until we kind of got this all accounted for.
Right.
And I mean,
but-
I don't want to get like too graphic, but I mean, they're actually having to recover the remains of these SEALs and attachments,
Yeah,
who burned up in the crash.
and
So
we're picking them up out of the firing, wreck and stuff. So,
it's a pretty difficult job.
it's-
Yeah.
I mean, if you were, for the guys that were there, we had talked about it later. It's like, Hollywood couldn't have written anything more graphic
Right.
for people that, want to imagine what this is like. I mean, you couldn't have written a script like this any
Right.
more graphic than what it actually turned out to be, as far as the way movies are made now. It's crazy.
Right.
And and I give the credit to the boys, because they handled a lot that night. And for some of them, it's their first deployment, and they're seeing the worst that can happen. And so it's trying to make sure that everything was okay.
Right. Right.
And so I think it was probably about 4.5, 5 hours, and we had everybody pulled out and accounted for. And